They told me not to marry a Filipina. They said it would end in heartbreak and money lost. But I thought Rochelle was different. I thought we were building a life together. I was wrong. I'm sitting here in my empty house outside Cebu, staring at the wedding photo on my kitchen table. Rochelle's smile looks so genuine in that picture. Mine too. We both look like we believed in forever. That was 18 months ago. Now she's gone, and I'm counting the cost of loving someone who saw me as an ATM with feelings. I need to tell this story. Not because I want sympathy, because maybe someone else will listen to the warnings I ignored. I remember the exact moment I thought I'd found my second chance at happiness. It was a humid Tuesday evening, and Rochelle was sitting across from me at our small dining table, her hands wrapped around mine. She was talking about expanding her sari shop, her eyes bright with possibilities. "James, with your help, we can make something beautiful together," she said, her voice soft and certain. "Not just the shop, our whole life." I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: purpose. After 2 failed marriages back in California and barely speaking to my grown son, I thought I was done with love, done with hoping. But there she was, 30 years old and still dreaming, making me believe at 59 that I could start over. "Tell me more about your plans," I said, squeezing her hands. She smiled that smile that made me forget everything my Navy buddies had warned me about. They'd said Filipino women only wanted green cards and money. They'd said I was too old to be anything but a retirement plan. "My cousin Maribel thinks we should add a small restaurant section," Rochelle continued. "Filipino food for tourists. Maybe some American dishes too. You know so much about business from your years managing the base garage." I didn't know much about business, but I loved how she looked at me like I was wise, like I mattered. "We'll need to be careful with money," I said, trying to sound practical. "My pension is steady, but it's not endless." "Of course, Mahal, we'll be smart about it, together." She brought my hand to her lips and kissed my knuckles gently. "I've never had a partner who thinks about the future like you do." That night, lying in bed while she slept beside me, I felt proud to have a wife again, proud to be building something. My friends back home had their golf games and their fishing trips, but I had Rochelle. I had purpose. I should have paid attention to how quickly she'd steered the conversation to money. I should have noticed that her affection always peaked when we talked about investments. But love makes you blind to everything except what you want to see. 6 months earlier, I'd been ready to give up on the Philippines entirely. I'd tried the dating sites, met a few women in Manila who seemed more interested in my passport than my personality. I was planning to head back to the States when my neighbor Paul invited me to a fiesta in his wife's barangay. "Just come for the food," he said. "No pressure to meet anyone. Just get out of that apartment." The moment I saw Rochelle, I knew I was in trouble. She was running a small stall selling lumpia and pancit, moving with this incredible energy, laughing with customers, handling 3 conversations at once. She wasn't the prettiest woman there, but she had something the others didn't: independence. "You look lost," she said when I approached her stall, her English clear but accented in a way that made everything sound musical. "Just hungry," I replied, pointing at the lumpia. "American?" she asked, already preparing my order. "Former Navy. Retired now." "You speak English really well." "I worked as a nanny for an American family in Dubai for 3 years. Had to learn fast." She handed me the food with a genuine smile. "What brings you to our little celebration?" We talked for 20 minutes. She asked about my life, my service, why I chose the Philippines. Real questions. Not the scripted ones I'd gotten used to from women who'd clearly researched visa requirements. "I wanted somewhere I could make my money stretch," I admitted. "Somewhere peaceful." "Peace is good," she said, "but not too peaceful. Life needs some excitement too." When I asked for her number, she hesitated. "I don't usually date foreigners," she said. "Too many complications." "I'm not looking for complications either," I told her. "Just companionship." She studied my face for a long moment, then wrote her number on a napkin. "Call me Thursday," she said. "We'll see if you're different." I called Thursday. And Friday. And every day after that for 3 weeks until she agreed to have dinner with me. She made me work for it, and I respected that. It felt real. For the first 6 months, everything felt perfect. Rochelle would pick me up every morning, and we'd go to the market together. She taught me how to bargain in Cebuano, how to tell fresh fish from day old, which vendors to trust. I felt like I was finally learning how to live in the Philippines instead of just existing there. "You're different from other foreigners," she told me one morning as we walked through the crowded market. "You really want to understand our culture." "I want to understand you," I said, and meant it. Her sorry shop was tiny, barely 6 feet by 8 feet, tucked between a barber shop and a mechanic's garage. But Rochelle ran it like a small corporation. She knew every customer's family, their jobs, their financial situations. She extended credit to the struggling ones and collected from the reliable ones with gentle persistence. "This is my dream," she said one afternoon, organizing inventory while I watched. "To build something that helps my community." I started helping with repairs, fixing the wobbly shelves, installing better lighting. When her old refrigerator died, I didn't hesitate to buy her a new one. "You don't have to do this," she said, but her relief was obvious. "Partners help each other," I replied. "That's what this is, right? A partnership?" "Yes," she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss my cheek. "With you, I finally feel secure." When I had to return to California for 3 weeks to handle some pension paperwork, I sent her money every week. Not because she asked, but because I wanted to. I wanted to be the man who provided, who protected, who made her life easier. "I miss you so much," she texted me. "The shop feels empty without you here." I felt needed. After years of feeling like a burden to my ex-wives, like a disappointment to my son, I felt valued. Rochelle made me believe I was her hero. The first crack in our perfect life appeared 3 months after we married. I'd been tracking the shop's income. Not because I didn't trust Rochelle, but because I wanted to understand our finances. The numbers weren't adding up. "Where did last month's profit go?" I asked her one evening, trying to keep my voice casual. "What do you mean?" she said, not looking up from her phone. "We brought in about 15,000 pesos, but there's only 3,000 in the shop account." "Oh, that." She waved her hand dismissively. "My supplier raised his prices suddenly, and my sister Maribel needed help with her electric bill." "How much did Maribel need?" "Just a few thousand. She'll pay it back." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust that my wife was being honest about money. But something in her tone, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, made my stomach clench. "Maybe we should set up a better tracking system," I suggested. "Keep receipts, write down loans to family." "Why?" Her voice turned sharp. "Don't you trust me?" "It's not about trust. It's about being organized." "It sounds like trust to me." She finally looked at me, and her expression was cold. "If you don't believe in me, maybe we shouldn't be doing this together." I backed down immediately. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound suspicious. I just want us to succeed." "Then let me handle the shop my way," she said. "I've been running it longer than you've been here." That night, she turned away from me in bed. For the first time since we'd been together, I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger. The pattern started then. Whenever money was missing, there was always an explanation. Family emergencies, supplier problems, unexpected expenses. And whenever I questioned anything, I became the bad guy. The controlling foreigner who didn't understand Filipino family culture. I started noticing other changes too. She used to greet me with enthusiasm when I returned from errands. Now she barely looked up. She used to ask about my day, my feelings, my thoughts about the future. Now our conversations revolved around what needed fixing, what bills needed paying, what her family needed next. 6 months into our marriage, Rochelle announced that we needed to think bigger. "The shop is too small," she said over dinner. "We're losing customers to the new convenience store down the street. We need to expand or we'll lose everything." "Expand how?" I asked, though I already knew where this was heading. "There's a property for sale next to us. We could combine the spaces, add prepared food, maybe even some tables for people to eat." "How much?" "Only 800,000 pesos. She said it like it was nothing, like I had that kind of money sitting around. "Rochelle, that's more than $15,000. That's a significant chunk of my savings. But it's an investment in our future." Her voice took on that edge I'd learned to fear. "In our family's future. What if it doesn't work? What if we can't make enough to pay back the loan? Are you saying you don't believe in us?" She stood up from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. "Are you saying you don't believe in me?" "I'm saying I want to be careful with money. I'm 59 years old, Rochelle. This is my retirement. If I lose it, I can't earn it back." And what about my future? Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt like the world's worst husband. What about my dreams? I thought you wanted to build something together. I do want to build something with you. Then prove it. She sat back down, reaching across the table for my hands. If you love me, you'll invest in us. This is our chance to create something beautiful. The conversation lasted 3 hours. Every time I raised a concern, she had an answer. Every time I hesitated, she questioned my love for her. By the end of the night, I felt cornered, guilty for being practical, selfish for wanting to protect my savings. I need time to think, I said finally. Time to think about what? Whether you love your wife or not? I went to bed feeling like the villain in my own marriage. The pressure didn't end with that conversation. It intensified. Rochelle would bring up the property expansion daily, sometimes multiple times a day. She'd point out successful businesses, show me pictures of what our expanded shop could look like, remind me that opportunities don't wait. My cousin's husband just bought 2 jeepneys with his foreign wife's help, she said one morning. Now they're making real money. Good for them, I replied, trying to focus on my coffee. He loves his wife enough to take risks with her. The guilt was constant, suffocating. But worse than the pressure was what happened when I finally agreed to take out a loan for half the amount. Thank you, Mahal, she said. But her embrace felt different, cooler, like she was already thinking about the next thing she needed. 2 weeks later, she started disappearing. I'm helping Maribel with her kids, she'd say, grabbing her purse after dinner. I'll be back late. Maybe I could come with you, I suggested. I'd like to spend more time with your family. It's better if I go alone. Girl talk, you know. She'd return the next morning with elaborate stories about sick children, boyfriend drama, family meetings that ran until dawn. But something felt wrong. She smelled different when she came back, not like someone who'd been taking care of children. Why can't your sister come here sometimes, I asked. I never see her anymore. She's busy with her own life, Rochelle snapped. Why are you being so suspicious? Don't you trust me? There it was again, the trust card. The implication that questioning her made me a bad husband. But Paul's wife mentioned seeing Rochelle at a karaoke bar in town, laughing with people I didn't recognize. When I brought it up, Rochelle exploded. So now you're having me followed? You're checking up on me like I'm a child? I'm not having you followed, Rosa just mentioned. Rosa needs to mind her own business. And so do you. I just want to understand where you go when you disappear all night. I go where I need to go. That should be enough for a husband who trusts his wife. The distance between us grew wider every day. She'd sit on the opposite end of the couch, sleep turned away from me, respond to my attempts at conversation with short, irritated answers. I felt like I was losing my mind. Was I being paranoid? Was I the problem? I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. One Thursday evening, when Rochelle said she was going to help Maribel again, I decided to find out the truth. I waited 30 minutes, then drove to the area where her sister lived. Rochelle's motorcycle wasn't there. I drove through town, checking the places she might be. The market, the church, the community center, nothing. Finally, I saw her bike parked outside Dream's karaoke bar. My heart started pounding. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, telling myself there could be an innocent explanation. Maybe Maribel worked there. Maybe it was someone's birthday party. But when I walked inside, I saw them immediately. Rochelle and a Filipino man about her age, sitting in a corner booth, their heads close together, laughing. His arm was around her shoulders. Her hand was on his thigh. I stood in the doorway, frozen. This wasn't sisterly help. This wasn't family duty. This was my wife on a date with another man. I turned around and walked out before they could see me. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When Rochelle came home the next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's clothes. You're up early, she said, avoiding my eyes. We need to talk. I'm tired, James. Maribel's baby was sick all night. I know where you were. She froze, her back to me. What are you talking about? Dream's karaoke bar. With a man who definitely wasn't your sister. She turned around slowly, and I saw something I'd never seen in her face before. Not shame, not regret, relief. How long? I asked. It's not what you think. How long, Rochelle? She sat down across from me, no longer pretending. 3 months. The number hit me like a physical blow. 3 months. Half of our marriage. Who is he? His name is Eric. He manages a construction company. Do you love him? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was matter-of-fact, almost businesslike. You're a good man, James. But you're too old to give me the future I want. Too old. The words echoed in my head, confirming every insecurity I'd tried to ignore. What future do you want? Children. A growing business. Someone who can build something with me for the next 30 years, not just the next 10. I thought we were building something. We were. But I realized it wasn't enough. I stared at her. This woman I'd loved, supported, trusted with my heart and my money. She looked tired but not broken. Not guilty. Just done. The property loan, I said. Was that for him? That was for us. All of us. The business will support whatever family I have. My chest felt hollow, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't accept it. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the lies, I still wanted to fight for us. We can work through this, I said the next morning when Rochelle came out of the bedroom with a suitcase. People make mistakes. We can rebuild. This isn't a mistake, James. This is me choosing my life. What about our life? What about everything we planned? You planned a retirement. I planned a future. Those aren't the same thing. I followed her to the door, desperate to find the right words, the right promise that would make her stay. I'll expand the business. We'll take out the full loan for the property. We'll make this work. With what energy? You're already tired after helping in the shop for 4 hours. Eric can work 12-hour days without complaining. I can work harder. You're 59. He's 32. I have more money saved. Money isn't everything, James. The irony was crushing. For months, every conversation had been about money. Every argument had centered on what I would or wouldn't spend. Now she was telling me money wasn't everything. Then what is everything? I asked. She paused at the door, her hand on the knob. Hope. Possibility. A partner who can grow with me instead of just supporting me. I thought I was your partner. You were my security. That's different. She opened the door, then turned back one last time. You gave me comfort, but comfort is not enough. And then she was gone. I stood in the doorway, watching her load her bag onto her motorcycle, watching her drive away from our house, our marriage, our life together. The silence that followed was unbearable. The first week alone, I couldn't eat. The second week, I couldn't sleep. By the third week, I started doing what I should have done months earlier. I started adding up the numbers. The shop expansion loan, 400,000 pesos. The new refrigeration unit, 60,000 pesos. The motorcycle repair, 15,000 pesos. Maribel's emergencies, 80,000 pesos. The house repairs, 90,000 pesos. My contributions to Rochelle's family fund, 120,000 pesos. Nearly 800,000 pesos. Almost 15,000 US dollars. Gone. But sitting in my empty house, I realized the money wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was how completely I'd fooled myself. I'd ignored every red flag because I wanted to believe I was special. I'd dismissed every warning because I thought our love was different. I'd convinced myself that a 30-year-old woman fell in love with a 59-year-old man because of his wisdom, his kindness, his character. The truth was simpler and more painful. I was an ATM with feelings. A retirement plan with a heartbeat. Paul came by in week 4, found me sitting on my porch in the same clothes I'd worn for 3 days. You look like hell, he said. I feel like hell. Want to talk about it? So I told him everything. The money, the lies, the other man, the final conversation. He listened without judging, without saying, I told you so, even though he had every right to. The hardest part, I said finally, is that I still miss her. Even knowing what she did, I still miss having her here. That's normal, Paul said. You didn't just lose a wife. You lost the person you thought you were with her. Who was that? Someone who mattered. Someone who was needed. Someone who had a purpose. He was right. With Rochelle, I'd felt essential. Without her, I felt invisible. It's been 4 months now since Rochelle left. I've heard through the expat gossip network that she and Eric got married last month. They're expanding the shop with the loan money I secured. She's pregnant. I should hate her. Sometimes I try to work up the anger, the rage that would make this easier. But mostly I just feel tired. Tired and ashamed of how willingly I participated in my own deception. The truth is, Rochelle wasn't evil. She was practical. She saw an opportunity to improve her life, and she took it. She was honest about wanting security, about needing financial support, about planning for the future. I was the one who chose to interpret her practical needs as romantic love. She never lied about loving me. She just loved what I could provide more than who I was. The men who warned me weren't racists or bitter losers. They were realists who understood something I refused to see. When there's a 30-year age gap and a massive economic gap, love usually flows upward toward money and security, not downward toward character and companionship. I wanted to be the exception. I wanted to prove that genuine connection could transcend practical considerations. I wanted to believe that my 2 failed marriages, my strained relationship with my son, my history of disappointing people didn't define me. Rochelle let me believe that for 18 months. In exchange, I gave her financial stability, expanded her business, and supported her family. It was a fair trade, even if I didn't realize I was making it. The lesson isn't that Filipino women are gold diggers or that foreign men are fools. The lesson is that when someone has everything to gain and little to lose, when the power dynamic is skewed so heavily toward one person's needs, when the relationship solves more problems for one partner than the other, love becomes transactional whether you acknowledge it or not. I should have listened to the warnings. I should have paid attention to the signs. I should have protected my heart and my savings better. But more than anything, I should have been honest with myself about what I was buying and what I was selling in that relationship. They warned me about marrying a Filipina, but the warning I really needed was about marrying anyone when I was desperate to matter again, when I was willing to pay any price to feel needed, when I confused being used with being loved. Now I know the difference. It cost me $15,000 and what was left of my faith in late-life romance, but now I know. Don't ignore the warnings. Don't ignore the signs. And don't confuse someone needing your money with someone needing you. Trust me on this one.